Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. I'm calling this video For the Love of Trappers. How can you collect traditional pattern knives and not love the trapper?
The standard trapper. Everyone loves the trapper. You've got your 4 1/8" frame. You got your wonderful, beautiful little clip blade. You got your spay blade. Yeah, what's not to love about the trapper? And this one's really cool because it's by Remington. It was actually made by Camillus, but it's got the Remington shield there. You see the Remington USA here. Remington on the blade. Really a beautiful knife. This one was given to me and I really like it. I really appreciate the fact that someone was not kind enough to give me a knife, and I really do like this knife. But as a rule, I don't collect trappers, and one of the reasons I don't collect trappers is because I have no use for this big old long 3.5" spay blade. So it's just a lot of extra weight on the knife for me. But I am constantly reminded that the trapper is the most collected pattern knife in America when it comes to traditional pattern knives. And I'm constantly reminded that by W.R. Case & Son and anyone who sells W.R. Case & Son knives. And you got to remember that W.R. Case & Son makes a whole lot of money selling trapper knives, and they're the ones who started the mystique about the trapper knife. They claim that this was the knife that won America. You know, this is the one that tamed the West. But let's think about that. This knife is called a trapper, so you would assume that this knife must have been used by all the trappers. But when you start thinking about trappers, two names come to mind, at least two names to me come to mind when you're thinking about American trappers. The first is Nessmuk, and the other one is S. Stanley Hawbaker. I mean, S. Stanley Hawbaker actually wrote the book on trapping. So how could you not think of Hawbaker when you think of trapping? And what knife is most associated with S. Stanley Hawbaker? I'll give you a hint. It's not the trapper. It's the muskrat. After all, the improved muskrat was named after Hawbaker. He came up with the design. And this is really what an improved muskrat looks like. You got your two California blades, which these two clip blades were on muskrats even before Hawbaker. But what Hawbaker did was he put this divider in there so that the blades were working off of two back springs. And so this is one knife that you know a trapper used. And the other knife by Nessmuk, well, everyone knows what his fixed blade knife looks like. But I guess a lot of people don't know what his folding slip joint knife looked like. Well, it looked like a moose. Yeah, it had the clip blade, nice big clip blade on a big heavy frame. And the other blade, well, there's debate about that. It was either a spay blade or it was a pen blade, or a spear blade. But the blades opened on opposite ends. It was an equal end knife with blades on both ends. That's what Nessmuk used when he was out there trapping. A really big pen blade with blades on opposite ends. He did not seem to carry a trapper. There's even pictures of the drawings he made of the knife he used when trapping, and it looked more like a moose than it did a trapper. So why is the trapper so popular? Well, I'll give you a hint. See the shield on this knife? They're the ones who made the trapper the most collected knife in the United States, at least among traditional pattern knives, W.R. Case & Son. And what they did was they needed to sell knives, and so they came up with the myth that this knife, the trapper, won the West. And they did that back in the 1920s or 1930s, somewhere around then. And it was just a big marketing ploy. And they started selling tons of trappers because, oh my God, the trapper won the West. And I can win the West too if I have a trapper. So everyone started buying trappers. And then every commemorative knife that Case ever came out with, Well, it also ended up being a trapper. And then their Halloween knives, they end up making them as trappers. And then they make their Christmas knife every year as a trapper. So if all you're doing is offering commemoratives and anniversary knives and everything as a trapper, guess what? It is going to end up being the most celebrated, most sold traditional pattern knife in America. So that's why the trapper is so popular. It's not that everyone loves the trapper, it's that Case sells the trapper, and then every other company decides to hop on the bandwagon and sell trappers too. Is that a problem? No. I'm sure a lot of people love the trapper. But this big spay blade, I have no use for it. And if I'm not using that blade, that's a lot of blade and a lot of weight on a knife I don't need. And so that's why I don't care for the trapper. It's not a pattern I'm going to collect, even though you see a bunch of trappers out there. So if I don't collect the standard trapper, why do I have so many of them? Well, like I mentioned, this one was given to me by a friend, so I'm not going to get rid of it. I really like it. It's one you're never going to find again. This is a Camillus made knife for Remington, and you've got the Remington stamp there, the blade edge that I think I showed already. I mean, it's really a nice knife. And if you're going to collect knives, you should have a couple trappers, even if it's not the knife that you really want to keep. And same with this one. I did buy this one, and it's because, as you can probably tell from other knives in this video, I collect white smooth bone knives. And if you're going to have a collection of white smooth bone knives, it's not going to be complete without a trapper. Now, one of the reasons I buy white smooth bone knives is I buy the knife, I use it, I see if I like it or not, and if I like it, then I buy more of them. But if not, I end up with maybe one or two knives, one of them being in the white smooth bone collection. Another one back here. This is the mini trapper, the 3.5-inch frame instead of 4 1/8 inch frame. I like this one better. It's a little smaller, fits the pocket better. But again, I don't really care for the spay blade. I don't really need it. I would love it if it had a different shaped blade on it, which is one reason why I kind of dig this Case trapper. First of all, it's an older one. It's from the 1970s. And you got this wonderful clip blade that has the half stop on it. But more importantly, instead of a spay blade, it's got a pin blade. And that just really works. I love it when knives have blades of two different lengths, and I do like the pin blade. The fact that this is also carbon steel makes this a trapper that I really do like. And this one I have carried quite a few times, and I like it. Why? Because pin blade, not a spay blade. If I had a standard trapper with a secondary blade that was a pin blade, I'd be much happier with it. Matter of fact, almost any kind of secondary blade on a trapper other than a spay blade makes it a knife that I kind of dig. I like the shape of the frame, I like the clip blade. I just don't like the spay blade. That's why I don't care too much for the standard trapper. This little guy back here, I came across this in a three, it was buy 3 knives, and I was looking for one certain knife, so this one happened to be in there, and they call this one a little trapper nut. And I got it because it was white smooth bone. Got a little spay blade. I guess it's supposed to be a spay blade. It's almost a coping blade, even though it's supposed to be a spay blade. So I kind of dig this one too. Looks more like a, like I said, looks more like a coping blade than a spay blade, and I can use it as a coping blade. And then a little pin blade, little 2 3/4 inch knife, so it'll fit in your little watch pocket. And here, back here, this is a really cheapo one, but this is a slimline trapper or a single blade one, so it's got the blade I want, so I'd be really happy carrying this one. But this one's pretty cheap. Still, it's an older knife too. It's by Colonial, and I collect a lot of Colonial knives, so I'm kind of happy with it. But it was definitely an inexpensive knife, and it's it's a trapper I could get behind simply because it's just one blade. As I fish more than I trap, as in I don't trap at all, this one by Richards has a scaling blade on it. And big clip blade. Love the half stop on this, even though it's really just, you know, one of those cheapo RCMP knives. So this was a novelty knife that they made, but it's a novelty fishing knife. I like this one. It doesn't have a spay blade. And the buzzsaw trapper, I really do like buzzsaw trappers because I can use a saw blade when I'm out in the woods, especially if it's got a liner lock on it, so it's not going to fold up on me. And so I really like the Schrade buzzsaw trapper. And this one was a commemorative for the 100th anniversary of the Boy Scouts, so not crazy about the black and yellow tiger stripe handle, but it's okay. I got used to it, and I like the fact that it's a buzzsaw trapper. So another, you know, bare head too. It's got, these are hard to get out. Big set of tweezers in the back. And if I can get it out, it's got a metal toothpick. I always have to end up getting it out with the tweezers, though it's so hard to get out. You ever hear of needing a knife pick for something? This is something where you could use a knife pick. I think it's actually bent. I think that's why it doesn't come out very easy, but you know, got a nice little pick. Tweezers on a buzzsaw trapper. That's pretty cool. I like that one. And then we got this one back here. You know, this is the hobo style trappers with your spoon, a fork, and a cap lifter. And then your clip blade all comes apart. Let me close that up, and so you can eat with your fork and your knife and your spoon all separately. So that's kind of cool, and it's basically, as you can tell from the shape of this knife here, it's definitely a trapper, or at least built on a modified trapper frame. So that one's okay. I don't have a problem with it. And then we got this hoof knife here. That's also built on a trapper frame, but you got a let's get the hoof hook out. You got the hook there for the hoof, and also a file there for the hoof. That's pretty cool. And then you got a half serrated sheepfoot blade, and I do like sheepfoot blades. I have found much more use for those, and this is really something worthwhile if you're like cleaning up hoofs and stuff. So I kind of dig this knife, even though it is a trapper. It's built on a trapper frame. So what you're seeing here is, I like the trapper frame. I like the clip blade. What I don't care about on it is the spay blade. So it's a blade I'm not going to use, and it's kind of a waste on the knife then. So I'm not going to carry the trapper, so I don't bother collecting the trapper. And one of the other things is the knife I do carry, because I do a lot of fishing, I like the toothpick. So here's a 5-inch toothpick. You see this clip blade. This is by Bear & Son. Really excellent toothpicks by Bear & Son. Look at the difference in those toothpicks. 4 1/8 inch frame, 5-inch frame, but this actually is a thinner knife by a long shot, and this is a pretty fat toothpick. So because it's a skinnier knife, it actually lays in the pocket better and just fits in there much more nicely, even though it's 5 inches long. So for me, if I'm going to carry a knife, I'd rather carry a 5-inch toothpick than a 4 1/8 inch trapper. So that's why the deal is, I don't really care that much for the trapper. I get it's the most sold, most popular knife in the world according to Case, but I didn't buy the myth.
So let me know, is the standard trapper with the spay blade your favorite knife? If it is, I'd love to hear from you. But I'd also love to hear from you if there's some other knife that you love even more than the Trapper. For instance, maybe you're a big Barlow fan. Or maybe you like Scout knives. I know that's my favorite pattern. Or maybe you're a Whittler fan. I know plenty of Whittler fans. And plenty of people just love the simple jackknife like the Sodbuster. No frills, just a great knife. Other people just love the Stockman, and that really is a knife that won the West. Or maybe you just like the Equal End pen knife. It's probably one of the most carried knives in the world. So what is it? What's your favorite traditional pattern knife? If it's the Trapper, I'd love to hear from you. As always, thanks for dropping by, and remember, you're only as sharp as your knife.